So for today's video, I have created an original tag, and the tag is Would You Rather Stephen King Edition. So a few months ago, I did the Would You Rather Impossible Edition book tag, which people quickly realized was not impossible. A lot of people answered those questions very easily. I probably shouldn't have called it the impossible tag, but oh well. Today, we're doing a similar version of that, except it's going to be Stephen King related. So the Would You Rather Stephen King edition. So all of these questions are Stephen King related. I will say it is 10 questions. The first 5 are kind of more situational. So they're like putting you in certain Stephen King related situations. Like, would you rather be in this situation or this situation? And then the last 5 are kind of more about reading. So like, would you rather read these books or would you rather read these books? So be prepared for all of that, and I plan on tagging a lot of Stephen King, or creators who love Stephen King, I should say. So definitely let me know what you think, and without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So, question number 1. Would you rather be locked in a cabin with Annie Wilkes, like Paul Sheldon in Misery, or be handcuffed to a bed like Jessie from Gerald's Game? So, if you know those two books or know anything about them, Misery is all about this author named Paul Sheldon who gets in a horrible car accident, and Annie Wilkes rescues him but also holds him captive. So, would you rather be in that situation or Gerald's Game? This woman named Jessie gets handcuffed to a bed by her husband, and her husband dies, which leaves her kind of stranded on the bed, handcuffed to the bed with kind of no real way of getting out. So, would you rather be in Paul Sheldon's shoes, or would you rather be in Jessie's shoes from Gerald's Game? For this one, it's tough, but I think I would rather be in Paul Sheldon's shoes because it's hard to do that. It's hard to say this without spoiling it, but just the end of Gerald's Game, where like you figure out what she has to do. I don't want to go through that. So, assuming that's the only way to get out of that situation, I'd rather just stick it out in Paul Sheldon's shoes. Even though Annie Wilkes is a bit crazy, I think I would have a somewhat easier time dealing with that. But yeah, that's just me. I'm definitely interested to see which direction people lean towards. Question number 2, would you rather be stuck under the dome or trapped in the grocery store during the mist? So these are 2 classic Stephen King tales of being basically just trapped in a setting. So Under the Dome is literally about a small town that gets capsulated in a giant dome. So like in this situation, you have the whole town under the dome, and you're kind of able to freely move about and somewhat have a normal life. Whereas the mist, you're stuck in a grocery store and you can't go outside because in the mist there are like giant bug-like creatures that will instantly kill you. So you're kind of stuck in a grocery store with a bunch of random people, although it is a grocery store, so you have food and supplies and stuff. So yeah, but if you've read either one of these, you know that both of these situations are not ideal, and there's both of these have bad villains. So, you know, like what would I rather do? Probably the grocery store, I guess. I don't know. This one's tough. Maybe Under the Dome, just because you have a little bit more freedom. This one's tough, though. I guess I'll go with Under the Dome just because you have a bit more freedom and there's not giant bug-like creatures to kill me. This next question is fun. Would you rather live in the town of Castle Rock or Derry? So both of these towns are very infamous in Stephen King. Obviously, Derry is the town that Pennywise resides in the book It. And Derry is also in a few other Stephen King books, but that's the main one. And then Castle Rock is home to several Stephen King books like The Dead Zone and Cujo and Needful Things. So a lot of crazy stuff happens in both of these towns. What would I rather live in? That's a tough question. I guess in Castle Rock, like a lot of crazy and weird stuff happens, but it doesn't necessarily happen to like everybody in the town. Whereas Pennywise could theoretically go after anybody. So maybe Castle Rock. I guess that's my leeway for that answer, but I don't know. Both options, like, I don't want to live in Maine. After reading so much Stephen King, like, I just don't want to live in that state. Question number 4. Would you rather be snowed in at the Overlook Hotel with Jack Torrance or spend a night in room 1408? So the first part of this question doesn't really need that much explanation, but like Jack Torrance from The Shining and spending a night in the Overlook Hotel with him, that probably wouldn't be a great option. But if you've read the novella 1408, that is all about a writer going to this hotel that supposedly has a very haunted room, 1408. And basically, everybody who tries to spend a night in there somehow mysteriously ends up dead. So, would I want to spend a night in there or with Jack Torrance in the Overlook Hotel? I guess maybe the Overlook Hotel just because it's so big. But assuming that I'm like snowed in there and have no way of getting out, and Jack Torrance is probably trying to kill me, probably not the best option either, but that's the one I'm going to go with. And then question number 5, which is the last of the situational questions here. Would you rather be forced to participate in the events of The Long Walk or The Running Man? So both of these are both dystopian Richard Bachman books. And The Long Walk is all about 100 boys are forced to go on this giant walk, and if you stop for any reason a certain amount of times, you're shot dead on sight. And basically the last one left standing walking for days and days is the winner, and they get the grand prize of basically whatever they want. So you can either do that or participate in The Running Man, which essentially is a dystopian game show where you have like 30 days to be on the run from basically everybody in the country who is trying to kill you. You get a head start, but essentially, like, you have to basically survive. And technically, if you do survive like the whole 30 days, you get $1 billion, but no one has ever done that. And basically, the more money or the longer you stay alive, like the more money you get for your family. I don't want to do that. That sounds awful. At least for The Long Walk, there is some hope of survival. Like, you could end up being the last ones left standing. And I feel like I could walk for a long time. I'm somewhat in shape. With The Running Man, I would basically have no shot at winning, and it would be death. So I'm going to say The Long Walk. Definitely interested to see what y'all pick, though. All right, and the next 5 questions, the last 5 questions, are all kind of Stephen King reading related. So would you rather do this? Or, I mean, you'll get the idea. So question number 6 is, would you rather only be able to read old Stephen King, everything he wrote before 2000, or new Stephen King, everything he wrote from the year 2000 and later? So there's always complaints about like old Stephen King being much better than new Stephen King. But in my mind, he has great and bad books from all decades. So it's really hard for me to decide which I would rather prefer. Also, this is tough because of Dark Tower. Like, I mean, most of the best Dark Tower books are from pre-2000. And then, yeah, I don't know. It's hard. It's really hard. But if I had to make like a gut decision, I guess it would probably be before 2000. Because there's just so many great books. I mean, there's The Dead Zone, there's Firestarter, Cujo, Different Seasons, Carrie, The Shining, Christine. So it's tough. And also probably I think there's more. Like there's 70s, 80s, and 90s King. So I guess there's probably just more options. But 2000s, you're missing out because you've got like Doohickey, Just After Sunset, Full Dark No Stars. You've got The Outsider. You've got If It Bleeds. You Like It Darker, which I really liked. So a lot of great collections in that time period. I assume this won't be that difficult for a lot of people. Probably most people will pick older King, but I'd be interested to see if anybody picks newer King. We'll see. Question number 7. Would you rather only be able to read the Dark Tower series or only be able to read every other Stephen King book besides the Dark Tower series? So you're either stuck just with those 8 books in the Dark Tower series, or you can read all of the other Stephen King books besides the Dark Tower. This one is tough for me because The Dark Tower series is one of my all-time favorites, but knowing that I wouldn't be able to read any other Stephen King book, that's a tough pill to swallow. So for me, I would probably pick all of the other Stephen King books. You'd get a lot more variety, you'd get a greater number of books. It would be sad to see that I wouldn't be able to read the Dark Tower series anymore, but I think if that was just only reading that, it would just get kind of old after a while. And that's kind of the great thing about Stephen King is that he has so many great books to go back and revisit. So I would sadly pick everything else besides the Dark Tower series. Question number 8. Would you rather only be able to read Stephen King novels or only be able to read Stephen King short story and novella collections? Now, probably for a lot of people, this isn't that tough because they would probably pick novels. But for me, this is really tough because in my mind, Stephen King is at his best writing novellas. And basically, I love all of his novella collections. So saying goodbye to like Different Seasons and If It Bleeds and Full Dark No Stars, and then some of his really great short story collections like Night Shift, Skeleton Crew, Just After Sunset, and even his newest one, You Like It Darker, which I loved. That would be a really tough pill to swallow. But then obviously the novels, like I mentioned, Dead Zone and Firestarter and Misery, so many great books. This one's really tough for me. Man. This one might be the hardest one for me, which is probably ironic because probably for a lot of y'all, the easiest one is going to be this one. Like, you'd probably just pick the novels. Again, I guess there's just less variety, maybe. Like, if you only pick short story collections, there's obviously less choices, too. Like, if you pick novels, then you have a lot more books to choose from. But a lot of those books are bad, but a lot of them are good. So this one's tough for me. I guess gut decision, I would pick novels, but I would regret it probably because I love his collections. And then question number 9, would you rather only be able to read King books that are less than 500 pages or more than 500 pages? So this is another kind of interesting thing with Stephen King is that he does have a lot of long books, but he also has a lot of short books. So would you rather only be able to read his kind of shorter books or his more longer books? And obviously, again, this kind of sucks for Dark Tower fans because some of them are longer, some of them are shorter. But overall, like, I know a lot of people's like all-time favorite Stephen King books are It, The Stand, 11/22/63. They're all very long, so it would be really hard for people to not go back and read those books that are super long. But in my opinion, I'm definitely picking the short ones because a lot of my all-time favorite Stephen King books are on the shorter side. You've got Carrie, you got Night Shift, you got The Dead Zone, Firestarter, Cujo, Misery, Dolores Claiborne. Like, you've just got so many great books that are on the shorter side. And I do have the unpopular opinion that a lot of his longer books are a bit long-winded. Like It and The Stand are just very, very long. I would, however, be missing out on some really good gems like Needful Things and Duma Key and some of the Dark Tower books. But I think overall, I'm just going to have a better time with his short ones. So that's what I'm going to go with. I'm definitely interested to see what people pick. My inkling is that people are going to pick long books just because of It and The Stand and 11/22/63, but it'll be interesting to see. And the last question, question number 10, would you rather only be able to read Stephen King horror books, aka books like Salem's Lot, The Shining, It, Pet Sematary, etc., or only be able to read Stephen King non-horror books, so everything that's not horror, which is stuff like Different Seasons, 11/22/63, Mr. Mercedes, The Green Mile, and etc. So this one might be hard for people, although a lot of Stephen King fans love his horror stuff, so that's what I think most people are going to pick. But again, a lot of my favorite Stephen King books aren't horror. Might be, some unpopular opinions, but like The Dead Zone, I wouldn't really consider. That's more of a thriller. Also, Roadwork is not horror. I love that book. I know a lot of people hate it. But even, stuff like Dolores Claiborne, like, is that really a horror book? I don't know. But obviously I'd be missing out on like Misery and The Shining and like Revival. So, it's a tough decision, but I think this one's also, the Dark Tower series, I wouldn't really consider horror. That's more fantasy, although it definitely blends a lot of different genres, but that also goes into the non-horror category. I might have to go with non-horror now. Now that I mentioned that, because then I'd get the whole Dark Tower series, The Dead Zone, Dolores Claiborne. This is tough, but I might have to go with non-horror. There's a lot of great non-horror Stephen King books, but I don't know. That's tough. But yeah, that's the last question. All right, so that was the Would You Rather Stephen King edition. So the first 5 questions are all kind of situational, where you're put into the shoes of different Stephen King book scenarios and story scenarios, and would you rather this or that. And then the last 5 questions are all kind of like reading. So like, would you rather read these Stephen King books or these Stephen King books? I'm definitely interested to see what y'all's answers are for this. And if you don't have a BookTube channel, leave your answers down below. I want to hear people's opinions about all of these questions. I do, however, have some people to tag for this video because there's a lot of content creators that I know love Stephen King, and I really want to hear their opinions on this. First person I'm going to tag, of course, is Ian from Ian the Reader. Big Stephen King fan. He hasn't read everything, but he's getting there. I tag you, Ian. I'm definitely interested to see what you have to say here. Also, Josephina from Fina Reads. Definitely interested to hear what she has to think. I'm also going to tag Amanda from the Reading and Writing Life. Definitely interested to see her take on these questions. I'm also going to tag Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads. He's a big Stephen King fan, and sometimes we have differing opinions, so it's going to be interesting to see how we link up or don't link up with some of these answers. I'm also going to tag Cliff's Dark Gems. I know he's a big Stephen King fan, so definitely interested to see what he has to offer. And lastly, I'm not sure if he'll actually do the tag, but I'm going to tag Mike's Book Reviews. Big time Stephen King fan, and I'd love to hear his opinions on all of these questions. So those are the 6 people, or 5 or 6 people that I tag here. And also, if you're a content creator and I didn't tag you and you're interested in doing this tag, please do the tag and tag me in it. And I want to see everyone's answers and reactions to this tag. Let's get it going. I'm definitely excited. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and continue to subscribe for more content. And I have the Bookish Drummer Discord down below, where we've always got a bunch of different buddy reads and read-alongs happening. Very fun place to talk about books. And I've got my Patreon link down below if you want to go support me there for as little as $1 a month. And I've got my Amazon wish list if you want to buy me a book. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a fantastic day.